the bride who chose love. The sun rose slowly over the peaceful town of Umuahia, casting golden light over the red earth roads and palm trees that swayed gently in the morning breeze. Today was not just any day. It was the annual New Yam Festival, a day when the entire community gathered to celebrate tradition, harvest, and unity. Drums echoed across the village square. Women wore colorful wrappers. Children ran laughing through the crowds. And in the center of the celebration stood Amara Okoye. Her beauty was impossible to ignore. Tall, graceful, and confident, Amara moved like the rhythm of the drums lived inside her. Men admired her. Women praised her elegance. But beyond her beauty was something even more powerful, her independent spirit. Amara was not like other girls in the village. She believed something many people feared to believe. She believed love should be chosen, not forced. But while the festival continued in joy, something darker was quietly unfolding behind the scenes. Inside the Okoye family compound, Amara's parents sat with an important guest, a man whose wealth could change their entire family forever. His name was Chief Gabriel Dike, one of the richest men in the entire state. His convoy of luxury cars had arrived earlier that morning, turning the quiet village road into a spectacle. Chief Gabriel had come with one purpose, and that purpose was Amara. But outside in the village square, Amara knew nothing about the plans already being made for her future. And somewhere not far away, a young mechanic watched her from across the crowd. His name was Tunde Bello, and he loved her deeply. But Tunde had something that powerful men like Chief Gabriel never worried about. He had nothing. No money. No connections. Only love. And sometimes, love alone can start a war. Before we continue the story, tell me in the comments, if you were Amara, would you choose love or wealth? Let me know what you think. And if you enjoy powerful African stories filled with love, betrayal, and unexpected twists, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who loves emotional storytelling. Because this story is only just beginning. Just a few streets away from the festival, the sound of metal clanking echoed from a small roadside mechanic shop. Motorcycles lined the dusty roadside. Engines were scattered across wooden tables, and bent over one of the engines was Tunde Bello. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he tightened a bolt. Life had never been easy for him. Tunde lost his father when he was only 10. Since then, he had worked every day to survive. Mechanic work, motorcycle repairs, sometimes even sleeping in the shop when money was too tight. But despite the struggle, there was one thing that always gave him strength. Amara. Their love story began 3 years ago. One rainy evening, when Amara's car broke down on a lonely road. Most people would have ignored her. But not Tunde. He fixed the car, walked her safely home, and from that day, their hearts slowly became one. But Tunde always knew something. A painful truth. Amara came from a respected family, and people like him were rarely accepted. That same night, the Okoye family compound was glowing with lantern lights. Inside the living room sat Chief Gabriel Dike. His expensive watch sparkled under the light. His deep voice carried the confidence of a man who had never been told no. Amara's parents sat across from him nervously. Then Chief Gabriel spoke. "I want your daughter as my wife." Silence filled the room. Mrs. Okoye nearly dropped her cup. Chief Gabriel continued calmly. "I will build you a new house, expand your family business, and make sure your family never struggles again." For a moment, Amara's parents looked at each other. Their struggling business, their debts, their fear of losing everything. All of it could disappear with one decision. And slowly, greed began to whisper louder than love. Later that night, under the quiet moonlight, Amara walked toward the old mango tree at the edge of the village. Someone was waiting for her. Tunde. He stood there nervously, holding her hands when she arrived. But tonight, Amara's face looked different. Her eyes were filled with worry. "My parents want me to marry someone else," she whispered. Tunde froze. The words hit him like thunder. "A rich man," she continued softly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The night air suddenly felt heavier. Tunde knew what this meant. How could he compete with a billionaire? But then he looked into Amara's eyes and saw something powerful. Love. Real love. The kind that doesn't measure wealth. But destiny was already preparing something neither of them expected. The next morning, Amara woke up to the sound of her mother calling her. When she entered the living room, her parents looked serious. Her father spoke slowly. "Amara, we have accepted Chief Gabriel's proposal." Her heart dropped. The room suddenly felt smaller. "He will marry you in 2 months." Amara shook her head in disbelief. "No, I won't." Her parents stared at her like they didn't recognize their own daughter. But Amara's voice was firm. "I will marry the man I love." Her father slammed his hand on the table. "You will marry the man who will secure this family's future." And in that moment, a war began inside that house. Love versus wealth. Freedom versus tradition. And Amara was standing alone in the middle of it. What do you think Amara will do next? Will she obey her parents? Or will she fight for the man she loves? Tell me in the comments. That night, the Okoye household was quieter than it had ever been. But the silence was not peaceful. It was the silence of anger, of disappointment, of control. Amara sat alone on the edge of her bed, staring at the moonlight shining through her window. Her parents had spoken clearly. They had already accepted the billionaire's offer. To them, the decision had been made. But to Amara, the decision had not even begun. Her mind replayed every memory she had with Tunde. The rainy evening they met. The long walks they shared. The way he always believed in a future that others could not see. And slowly, Amara realized something. If she obeyed her parents, she would live in luxury. But her heart would live in prison. The next morning, Amara met her closest friend Ngozi at a small roadside restaurant near the market. Ngozi had always been the one person Amara trusted with her secrets. As they sat together eating roasted corn, Amara poured out everything. Her parents, the billionaire, the forced marriage. Ngozi listened quietly. She nodded. She comforted her. But deep inside Ngozi's heart, something darker was growing. Envy. Because while Amara was complaining about marrying a billionaire, Ngozi had spent her entire life dreaming of such an opportunity. Still she smiled. "Follow your heart," Ngozi told her. But sometimes, the people who smile beside us are the same ones who secretly wait for us to fall. Later that night, Tunde sat alone in his mechanic's shop. The shop was quiet except for the ticking sound of cooling engines. Amara had told him everything. Her parents had chosen another man. A powerful man. A rich man. A man who could give her everything Tunde could not. And for the first time in years, Tunde doubted himself. Maybe love was not enough. Maybe dreams could not compete with wealth. Maybe the best way to prove his love was to let her go. But destiny had other plans. The next afternoon, Amara rushed to the mechanic's shop. Her heart was beating faster than ever. She found Tunde sitting quietly beside a broken engine. Without hesitation, she grabbed his hand. "I will not marry him," she said. Tunde looked at her shocked. "My parents can choose wealth," Amara continued. "But I will choose love." Then she said something that would change both of their lives forever. "Let's run away." For a moment, even the wind seemed to stop moving. Now pause for a moment. Running away from family tradition and a powerful billionaire is not a small decision. So tell me honestly in the comments, do you think running away is bravery or a mistake? Because the choice they make next will change everything. That same night, Amara packed only a small bag. She looked around her room one last time. The house she had grown up in. The walls that held her childhood memories. Then quietly, she stepped outside. At the end of the road, Tunde waited with his old motorcycle. No grand plan. No luxury. Just courage. And love. As the motorcycle disappeared into the dark road, Amara knew one thing. There was no going back. The next morning, in a small church outside the town, two nervous lovers stood before an old pastor. The church was simple. Wooden benches, faded walls, soft sunlight passing through the windows. No large crowd, no expensive decorations. But something powerful filled the room. Truth. And when the pastor asked the final question, "Do you take this man as your husband?" Amara answered without hesitation. "Yes." Just like that, Amara Okoye became Amara Bello. Back in the village, the news spread like wildfire. Amara had run away. And worse, she had married the poor mechanic. When the news reached her parents, the house shook with anger. Her father smashed a glass on the floor. Mrs. Okoye cried in humiliation. But the most dangerous reaction came from someone else. Chief Gabriel Dike, the billionaire who had been rejected. And powerful men do not like humiliation. Marriage was beautiful, but reality came quickly. Amara and Tunde moved into a tiny one-room apartment. The roof leaked when it rained. The kitchen was barely big enough to stand. Sometimes the electricity disappeared for days. And some nights, they slept with empty stomachs. But every morning, they woke up beside each other. And that alone gave them strength. One evening, a black luxury car stopped outside their small apartment. Neighbors watched curiously. The car door opened slowly, and out stepped Chief Gabriel Dike. His presence alone filled the street with tension. He walked to their door calmly, then knocked. Tunde opened the door. Chief Gabriel looked around the tiny house. Then he smiled coldly. "So this is the life you chose." Chief Gabriel sat down slowly. His expensive shoes touched the dusty floor. Then he looked directly at Amara. "I will give you one last chance," he said calmly. He placed a check on the table. The amount written on it could change their entire lives. "Leave this man," he said, "and everything you see in this house will change." Silence filled the room. Amara looked at the check. Then she looked at Tunde. The future of their marriage was sitting on that table. Before we continue this unbelievable story, if you love emotional stories like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who loves powerful African storytelling. Because the next chapters are about to become even more intense. The room was silent. The check from Chief Gabriel sat on the small wooden table like a dangerous temptation. The number written on it was more money than Tunde had ever seen in his life. Amara slowly picked it up. For a brief moment, she looked at it. Then, without saying a word, she tore it into pieces. The sound of ripping paper echoed through the room. Chief Gabriel's smile disappeared instantly. Amara dropped the torn pieces onto the floor. "My happiness is not for sale," she said calmly. For the first time in his life, the billionaire had been defeated by someone with nothing. Chief Gabriel stood up slowly. His voice became cold. "You will regret this." Then he walked out. The door slammed behind him. But what none of them knew was that this rejection would create enemies they had not yet imagined. The next morning, far away in a quiet cafe, Ngozi sat across from Chief Gabriel. She stirred her drink nervously. Chief Gabriel placed an envelope on the table. Inside it was money. A lot of money. "All I need," he said quietly, "is information." Ngozi hesitated. But the thought of wealth, luxury, and a life she had never known was too tempting. Finally she nodded. From that moment, Amara's closest friend became her greatest enemy. Life continued for Amara and Tunde. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Then one afternoon, a wealthy transport company owner brought a broken vehicle to Tunde's workshop. The problem was complicated. Several mechanics had already failed to fix it. But Tunde studied the engine carefully. Hours passed. Sweat covered his face. Finally, the engine roared back to life. The businessman stared in disbelief. "You fixed what 5 mechanics could not." That moment changed everything. That evening, the businessman returned with an offer. A job. Not just any job. He wanted Tunde to become head mechanic of his transport company. The salary was more money than Tunde had ever earned. For the first time since their marriage, hope began to shine brighter. But sometimes opportunity brings new challenges. So tell me in the comments, do you think this new job will finally change their lives? Or will something unexpected destroy their progress again? Because the next twist will shock you. Years passed. Tunde worked harder than anyone in the company. He saved every naira he could. He studied business at night, read books, learned about engines, transportation, manufacturing. And slowly, a dream began to grow in his mind. One day, he would start his own automobile company. Starting a company required courage, but it also required money. Everything Tunde and Amara had saved was invested into his dream. They rented a small warehouse, bought second-hand machines, hired a few workers. It was risky, but sometimes the greatest victories are born from the greatest risks. One evening, Tunde's business partner disappeared, along with the company's entire savings. Bank accounts were empty. Equipment was taken. Workers left. Years of sacrifice gone overnight. When Tunde sat on the empty warehouse floor, he did not cry, but his silence said everything. Let me ask you something honestly. After losing everything like this, would you try again or give up forever? Tell me what you would do. That night was the hardest of their lives. Amara held Tunde's hands as he stared into the darkness. "I failed you," he whispered. Amara shook her head. "You did not fail," she said softly. "You only paused. And sometimes, one voice of encouragement can rebuild a broken dream." A few weeks later, an elderly retired businessman visited the warehouse. He had heard about Tun's story. Instead of judging him, he admired his courage. "I like people who rise after falling," the old man said. Then he made an offer. An investment. Enough money to rebuild the company. But this time, with experience behind them, the next 5 years changed everything. Tun's automobile company began producing affordable vehicles. His designs were innovative. His leadership inspired workers. Soon his company expanded across multiple cities. News headlines began appearing everywhere. Local mechanic builds successful automobile company. The poor mechanic was now a powerful businessman. One bright afternoon, a convoy of luxury vehicles entered Amara's hometown. Villagers gathered along the road in shock. The man stepping out of the car was Tunde Bello, and beside him stood Amara. Stronger, wiser, victorious. At the same time, Chief Gabriel's empire was collapsing. Investigations revealed corruption inside his companies. Bank accounts were frozen, properties seized. Powerful men who once feared him now avoided him. The billionaire who once tried to buy love was losing everything money could not save. Amara visited her parents' house. Time had humbled them. Their business had struggled. Their pride had faded. Her mother held her hands with tears in her eyes. "We were wrong," she whispered. Amara simply smiled. Because sometimes forgiveness is more powerful than revenge. Later that evening, the truth about Ngozi's betrayal finally surfaced. Her secret meetings with Chief Gabriel, the money she accepted, the lies she spread. When confronted, Ngozi could not even look Amara in the eyes. Jealousy had destroyed their friendship. And some betrayals cannot be repaired. But tell me something honestly. Do you think Amara should forgive Ngozi? Or should betrayal have consequences? I really want to hear your thoughts. The next morning, Amara and Tunde stood together on a quiet hill overlooking the town. The sun slowly rose above the horizon. The same town where their love had once been rejected. The same town where people once laughed at a poor mechanic. Now, they stood stronger than ever. Not because of money, but because of patience, endurance, and love that refused to break. Amara leaned her head on Tunde's shoulder. "We made the right choice," she said. Tunde smiled, and as the sunlight spread across the land, their story became proof of one powerful truth. Sometimes the person the world rejects today becomes the person the world admires tomorrow. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes in true love and perseverance. Because stories like this remind us that real wealth is not money. Real wealth is choosing love when the world tries to sell you something else.